Radically Open DBT, or RO-DBT, Radically Open Dialectical Behavior Therapy. This slideshow can be found on Emotional Empowerment's website, and these are links there that are for the modules in the original DBT. This is the table of contents where you can click to different weeks. There are 8 weeks of Radically Open DBT. Our facilitators are myself, Jane Rikas, and Morgan Green, both employed by LifeStance. These are the dates of the first class from March 7th through April 25th, and then it will repeat the dates on the screen. So Radically Open DBT, I'm just going to read this real quick. RODBT may be particularly helpful for individuals who struggle with excessive control and rigid thinking patterns, as well as for those who found traditional DBT to be ineffective in addressing their specific challenges. It's a newer approach to treating mental health issues developed by Dr. Tom Lynch. It's currently being researched and may not be available in all areas. It incorporates DBT principles, but also has a distinct focus on acceptance and openness. RODBT is a transdiagnostic treatment which treats or targets a spectrum of disorders characterized by excessive inhibitory control or over-control, referred to as OC. It's intended for clinicians treating clients with such chronic problems as refractory depression, which also is referred to as treatment-resistant depression, anorexia nervosa, and obsessive-compulsive personality disorder, or OCD as well. So OCD or OCPD. So have you ever had problems with tight control on your emotional expression, rigid thinking patterns, social isolation or agoraphobia, or social anxiety, excessive self-control, treatment-resistant depression, anorexia, or other eating disorders, OCD or OCPD, or you've been to regular DBT but don't quite relate, as regular DBT is for those with more under control or chaotic emotions and experience. DBT and RODBT are not religious, but there is some philosophical background. Original DBT focuses on mindfulness practices informed by Zen Buddhism. RODBT, mindfulness practices, are informed by Sufism, and that is an ecstatic dancer there, a practitioner of Sufism. The metaphor of two different flowers occurs in both of these philosophies. In Buddhism, you will hear the phrase "no mud, no lotus," which refers to the idea that we experience struggles in our life that are like being down in the muddy water, but the lotus comes out of it, the lotus of enlightenment or awareness. In Sufism, they use the idea of the rose and its thorns. A Sufi poet, Rumi, has many quotes, one being the rose's rarest essence lives in the thorns. He also said, pull the thorn of existence out of the heart fast, for when you do, you will see thousands of rose gardens in yourself. I will soothe you and heal you. I will bring you roses. I, too, have been covered with thorns. Do thou smile like the rose at loss and gain, for the rose, though its petals be torn asunder, still smiles on and is never cast down. And if you are a rose, I am rose shadow. What was said to the rose that made it open was said to me here in my chest. How did the rose ever open its heart and give to this world all of its beauty? It felt the encouragement of light against its being. Otherwise, we all remain too frightened. Another Sufi poet, Hafiz. So again, this is the emotional empowerment website address. This is the text by Thomas Lynch, Radically Open Dialectical Behavior Therapy. And this is a link to a workbook you can print out for use with this group. So self-inquiry is the form of mindfulness in RODBT, and there is a separate slideshow for that will be introduced in the group. Self-inquiry is a kind of mindfulness practice in which you ask yourself good questions to help you find your edge. Our edge usually occurs in situations where we feel uncomfortable. Practicing self-inquiry can help us to see these situations as opportunities for growth rather than as problems. Self-inquiry involves turning towards our distress with the intention of learning from it. So inquiry and enquiry are similar words, and the slight change in spelling has to do with their origins. Inquiry, with the prefix of in, comes from Latin and refers to a formal investigation. Enquiry comes from the French with the prefix en, and it means to ask a question, like the inquirer. Self-inquiry is an awareness of the awareness itself. It leads us beyond duality because the object of meditation, the I, is ultimately revealed as the subject itself. There's a Radically Open podcast or a couple episodes about over control by Debbie Sorensen interviewing Hope Arnold. There are flashcards that you will be able to download and receive in group. There is a RODBT diary card, which allows you to keep track of your progress in group weekly, and you can use this with your individual therapists. So the quote about this is, one of the challenging parts of diary cards is that paper copies provided by the therapist are not very handy for our smartphone-focused life. In response to this, there are 2 RODBT apps, which help with daily and weekly social signaling, overt behaviors, and private behavior tracking. So you can come back to this slideshow to get those links, or you can ask either of the group facilitators to give you any of the links from this presentation. There's an introduction by Tom Lynch that you can view at your own leisure. So here's a couple things about whether DBT or RODBT is right for you and what they're intended for. And there may be some people who attend both and get something out of both. Original DBT was created for an under-controlled personality type with anxious attachment style, seeking attachment and fearing abandonment, with core problems that include emotional dysregulation and poor impulse control, high levels of self-harm and suicidal ideation, which is usually mood-dependent, unplanned, and impulsive. So cluster B, dramatic, erratic personality styles, mainly borderline and antisocial personality disorder, which is not seen as stigmatized, which is seen as simply indicating which skills would help a person to improve their functioning. RODBT was developed for the opposite over-controlled personality types with an avoidant attachment style, so not seeking out attachments and abandoning relationships fairly easily. Core problems include social signaling deficits, which means not showing openness, appearing aloof or avoidant of social interaction. So low openness, and higher aloofness. High levels of self-harm and suicide, which by contrast is usually planned, a well-kept secret, and most likely rule-governed rather than mood-governed. So this relates more to cluster A and C over controlled personality styles, such as avoidant, obsessive compulsive personality disorder, paranoid, and schizoid, but also chronic depression and anorexia nervosa. So I will just read the bottom part here that DBT teaches the client how to avoid conflict, to be more organized, to restrain impulses, to delay gratification, and tolerate distress. Skills that are already overlearned or engaged in compulsively by most OC individuals. RODBT teaches clients how to increase and enhance openness and flexible responding, social connectedness, and vulnerable expression of emotion. So again, DBT is for anxious attachment style with the core problem of emotional dysregulation and poor impulse control. RODBT is for avoidant attachment style and the core problems of social signaling deficits, low openness, and aloofness. Again, the 4 modules of original DBT are useful for RODBT, which include mindfulness, emotion regulation, distress tolerance, and interpersonal effectiveness. RODBT topics include radically open mindfulness, learning from self-inquiry, emotions and how they communicate to others, and practicing loving kindness, engaging in novel behavior, developing flexible mind, and being kind to fixed mind. 4, learning from feedback and fatalistic mind. 5, the art of validation, signaling social inclusion. 6, learning to trust and enhancing intimate relationships. 7, developing compassion and forgiveness and managing envy. 8, increasing openness and social connectedness, again, being loving via love.